Knicks Take Podcast.
Yeah, what it do? Mobbing with the crew, nothing new. I thought you knew, thought I was falling off. Blessings keep on falling through. Oh, don't panic, dog. Bro, wait, boo, I can't lose.
Yo, what's good, y'all? I am Josh So Focused.
I'm French the Bro host, and we would like to welcome you to
The Knicks Take Podcast. The Knicks Take Podcast. The Knicks Take Podcast.
this is episode 54.
And this is a weekly podcast where we cover the most intriguing Knicks news of the week.
If you want to find us on our socials, you can check us out first on Twitter at The Knicks Take.
Then go to YouTube and search Knicks Take Videos.
And if you rather follow on Instagram, you can find us there at The Knicks Take.
And last, you can check us out on Facebook at Knicks Take Media.
And the Knicks Take website.
And the Knicks Take website. Yes, we need to add that into the intro.
God.
That is something. The
Or
whole
we could
French
just
here.
replace the whole intro. Hey, you never know.
We could
'cause
do that
everything is on the website. Everything.
That's true. That's true. We'll talk about that the next time we come back. Anyway, we are back after multiple weeks. A lot of stuff has happened. A lot of Knicks talk to discuss. But before we get into that, French, how are you, sir?
Another day, another disappointment with the Knicks, but we'll get into that later. It wasn't nothing too crazy, having to come to terms with the realities, but outside of Knicks talk, I've been all right. I've been, everything I've been doing outside of Knicks talk has been focused on, like, I went to the Knicks Pro-Am game a few weeks back. I was looking forward to talking about that on the podcast. We'll get into that in a little while, but yeah, we've just been chilling in this little break, this little vacation we've had. How you been? What you been up to?
Interesting month and change for me. I had my birthday, had the kid's birthday. As interesting as it has been, it's not been as interesting as this Knicks talk. So let's just get right into it. Starting with you, French. How about you recap for those, it's been a while, recap what you talked about last episode.
I was basically diving into the trade rumors with Donovan Mitchell in Utah. As you might have heard, the Spider trade saga is now officially over. We'll get into that in a little while, but I also went over the Summer League finale where the Knicks lost the championship. Quentin Grimes was looking good. I was surprised that he didn't become Summer League MVP, but that tied into the loss most likely. And it also ties into the Donovan Mitchell situation, as he ended up being like the deciding factor almost for why the trade didn't go through and why he became such a asset in the eyes of Utah. So yeah, let's get into the biggest story of the offseason after I get into the Knicks Pro-Am game. So I went to host those community college. I'm finding out that the Knicks were going to be in the Bronx. I'm like, it was a in the last few hours of my work day. I'm like, wait, they going to be in hostos? I got to go see what's up. It's free game. Pro-Am, Jalen Brunson going to be playing. Obi Toppin's supposed to be there. Emmanuel Quickly's supposed to be there. And they said Julius Randle's going to be playing too. So I'm like, hey, if you can change my mind and how I feel about you, if you're going to come out there and show something different, I'm always willing to see that. You still on the roster, I'm still willing to see how you're going to show up. And it's the same as last season, just with Jalen Brunson. It was just, I don't know. I didn't really see much different from Julius Randle. But Obi Toppin didn't really show anything else that we haven't seen before. But it's a Pro-Am game. I didn't want to really overreact to it. Jalen Brunson did look the best out of all three of them, but as you know, we lost that game, so it wasn't nothing too crazy to really report on. Was there anything about that game that you wanted to touch on?
A lot of overreaction from, Twitter media, Twitter people. A lot of, these are the Knicks' best, three of the Knicks' best players, and they couldn't beat guys that came right off the street, and nobody. There was a few people, but not many people really took into context that the Knicks were not the only players to walk into a pro-am and lose their game.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they weren't as impressive as some of the other Knicks players. The NBA players that went into pro-am games. They were not as impressive as some of the best players in the league, but none of them can really say they're one of the best players in the league either. You would hope for a little bit more from Brunson. I thought that it was very telling that out of the three Knicks players that showed up, Obi Toppin was probably, if not tied for the best with Brunson, he was the best player, from the Knicks on the court.
Most exciting to watch do all the dunks and stuff. There was a lot of missed opportunities for Obi as well on the fast break as usual, but I don't mean to cut you off, guys.
I've just, from what it looked like to me, it seemed to me like, Obi was, at the very least, you could say he was on par with two guys who are clear-cut starters on the Knicks, and maybe one of them shouldn't be a clear-cut starter, but the guy that he backs up was on the same team as him, and you couldn't say that the guy who starts ahead of him is clearly better than him. So, there was that. I can't remember the individual who dropped 40 points on the Pro-Am squad. I did just read it yesterday. He's not somebody that we really need to talk about, but
I talked about him.
He's had
Take blog.
Right.
The website, you see that blog. It's Jordan something. It's two Jordans. I'll tell you in a second. Go ahead.
And they both scored 40, I believe. But just like Jordan would.
Against the Knicks.
He basically is not a guy that just came off the street. He ain't playing on Rucker Park and doing all, but these are guys that have played professionally overseas. They've played in college. These are top talent, legitimate players. Maybe they're not NBA superstars and all that stuff, but Julius Randle and Obi Toppin, they ain't going out there and playing their hardest. Jalen Brunson, they just showing a little bit. They ain't out there trying to get hurt, because there's their money is in NBA. So they're not going to try their hardest. They're going to just do what they can. You would hope that them not putting, they wouldn't have to put 100% into the game in order for them to win a game like this. But at the end of the day, if those three guys wanted to take over, I'm pretty sure they could and would. And, it's not nothing to get overly excited about. It was a lot of the chirping and all that stuff on Twitter. I felt like it was a little overdone, but that's how it is with New York media and New York fandom and anything that has to do with the Knicks, really.
Yeah, definitely. And the two guys' names, the one that was matched up with Julius Randle and Obi, his name was Jordan Washington. He finished the night with 40 points. A lot of them came like directly on Julius and directly on Obi. He just overpowered both of them. Was talking to them the whole game. Then there's the other Jordan was Jordan Aaron. He was matched up with Jalen Brunson. He also dropped 39 points. Couldn't miss. Little shifty guard. I was talking about him in the blog that I did on the Knicks Take post. And they had more to prove than the Knicks did. It was an August Summer League game. The Knicks players didn't come out there like, oh, we're going to come out there, win the chip tonight. Like, they were just coming out there to show love and give people an opportunity to see them who's not going to pay thousands of dollars to go and watch them play in the Garden. Well, not thousands, but they're not going to pay. They don't have the resources to go to the Garden and watch them play live. So they came to the Bronx, showed some love, and that was that. Yeah, it's been multiple NBA players that went to Pro-Am games and lost, and you would hear no reaction. The Hawks players lost. LeBron almost lost. He like barely won within 2 points, and like it's a whole bunch of instances like that. And it's the Knicks, so biggest market, you're gonna get the most reaction. There's nothing really to dwell on. But it was a great experience to be at. There's not much to report on. It was just a good experience. I saw a lot of Knicks content creators there. I saw CP. I saw like from Knicks fan TV. I saw JD. All the people that be with him. I seen like reporters. It was nice. It makes me want to go to more Knicks related events and just seeing who you could connect with out there.
Right.
But enough about this.
I just want to say before we switch over, people need to think about it in this way. Would you rather the Knicks go to this free event, show up, drop 20 points each, lose, or would you rather see them go to this event, drop 50 points and get injured, or, try their hardest and get injured the way that Chet Holmgren did when he played up against LeBron James in one of them Pro-Am games? He's out for the full season. So you gotta kind of pick and choose your battles. I don't care what happens as long as these dudes play, they show what they can do and they get out at the end of the game 100% healthy, ready to come into the season. I would be tight if Obi Toppin had gotten hurt on a dunk and landed wrong or something like that, trying to win the game and showing how good he really is. I would have been tight if he would have got hurt in this game. And, that's a reality that the Oklahoma City Thunder have to deal with now. So instead of worrying about whether these teams win or lose with your favorite players on them, just remember, they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid to play in these Pro-Am games. It's free.
Obi ain't get paid for nothing. He doing East Bay dunks for free in the Pro-Am game. Just be happy with what we got. We got some highlight plays to look at in the middle of Obi.
Exactly.
From players that we've been wanting to see for the most part. We've been wanting to get a good look at Jalen Brunson. And the only way to look at this is they went out there to just develop a little bit of chemistry in August, get some good bumping, and they got to play together for the first time. And
I don't know about the chemistry part too.
Well, Jalen Brunson got to see Obi Toppin firsthand, so now he know what to expect from him in training camp. He played with him. He had a few nice a few nice no look passes to him. So if I'm not mistaken, the alley-oop too. So we could probably get expected to see a lot more of that into the preseason coming up.
I'm excited to see that, but we'll get into the other player from there, Julius Randle. We'll get into him a little bit later. For now, let's move into the biggest Knicks story of the offseason. Go ahead, French. Let's talk. Well, I'll say it. RJ Barrett signs 4-year contract extension worth up to $120 million. After weeks and weeks of reporting that the Knicks were in the lead in talks for Donovan Mitchell, the Knicks made a surprising move this past Monday and signed RJ Barrett to a contract extension. RJ Barrett was a part of the trade talks with the Cavs for Donovan Mitchell, which is why they waited so long to extend RJ, even though initial reports stated that he wasn't on the table. So once again, this past Monday, August 29th, the Knicks had set a trade deadline when it came to involving RJ Barrett in these trade talks. They've been talking for weeks. Say, we'll put RJ Barrett. This is what we want to send with him. Take it or leave it. You have until the end of Monday. And if nothing happens, then we're moving on from this. And by the end of the day, nothing materialized. Ainge didn't see like the package that he was there. He wasn't ready to accept that deal. And Leon said, we're just going to sign RJ then. Call it a day. New York Knicks guard, per Woj, RJ Barrett finalized a 4-year rookie extension. It could be worth up to $120 million per his agent, Bill Duffy, complicating the franchise's offseason trade pursuit of Utah Jazz all-star Donovan Mitchell. Now, when I read that from Woj, I was I was like, does it really complicate? I mean, complicating is very strong, right? It's a strong, you word verbiage there. It makes it sound like the Knicks might not actually trade for Donovan Mitchell. Like, I still think the Knicks are in the lead for this. Cleveland already bowed out. I don't see this being really a factor. And I was wrong about that. But before we get into being wrong about that, how do you feel about this RJ Barrett, contract extension?
I'm confused at why that would make it like how you feel. I don't see. Well, maybe I misheard you, because I don't feel like this contract should complicate stuff mid negotiations, because it's not a bad contract. If anything, this is better than the alternative if you want to trade for RJ Barrett, because now you have him on a good contract rather than you have to structure a contract with his agent, when the agent's probably going to be requesting the max the longer you wait. And
well, I actually have an answer for that. Why that would complicate the trade. Now, when RJ Barrett signed this contract extension, there was a poison pill restriction. I don't know if you saw that when this was originally reported. Basically, what that means is when RJ Barrett is put into a trade, I believe it's just for this season. When he's put into a trade, the outgoing salary would be $10.9 million, but the incoming salary has to be $20 million or so. So that makes it very difficult for two over the cap teams to pull something off like that.
That would be so for the average team, but when you think about the contracts that we have on this team, I don't think it's hard to still make a trade, even with the poison pill clause, because
the Utah, basically a trade involving RJ Barrett and Donovan Mitchell would have to include a third team, because there's no way that you can do a one-on-one deal. So
but that was going to be the case regardless.
Not necessarily. I know it's very easy to go into the trade machine and say, hey, we could do a 3-team deal. In reality, it's very hard and very difficult for teams to do 3-team deals when it comes to, superstar players like Donovan Mitchell. Can they do it? Has it been done? Absolutely. But more often than not, it's just easier to just deal with one team as opposed to two other teams, because the third team might be like, well, I want this. When you have more GMs involved in this stuff, unless somebody is just trying to be like, well, I'm just going to get involved in this so I can get whatever, the scraps or whatever. If they're trying to get something real, that's what complicates the whole trade. So if they were going to continue these trade talks, which we'll get into why maybe they didn't, it probably would have lasted well into training camp, maybe even into the preseason, because it would have been forced to include a third team as opposed to just being a one-on-one situation between the Knicks and the Utah Jazz. So that's why it complicated it. Because I think I also saw reported Ainge was looking to get RJ Barrett so that he could flip him again. And once he was on that contract, he wasn't willing to take the risk of having him, and now you're trying to flip him again. Maybe he's not worth that contract that he got. Now you're stuck with RJ Barrett for 4 years. It's much easier to trade him and get assets back when he's clearly underpaid, which right now he is clearly underpaid. We just don't know by how much. So that's the other thing where it's like, you guys signed him to that contract. Yeah, we're not doing that deal anymore.
And the thing about this contract is that, on face value, you see 120 million, you think, oh, that's a lot, but that's with incentives. If he hits all his incentives, then it equals out to 120 million. It's closer to Julius Randle's contract, where it's probably like 104 million. like straight, and it's probably a descending contract year by year, if I'm not mistaken, too. So it's not a bad extension. It's not a bad extension. It does have a poison pill clause, but it does make it more difficult to trade. But there's been a player that's been traded before, and if you have a smart GM, you can still trade someone on this clause, and it's only for 1 year. If you're going to trade for RJ Barrett and you're trying to tank, it's not guaranteed to go against that if you have RJ Barrett on your team, is what I'm saying. It's not like you're trading for Donovan Mitchell and you're trying to tank for Victor Wembanyama. And it seems like that's what Utah's goal this offseason was to do, to get rid of Rudy Gobert, get rid of Donovan Mitchell, and start their rebuild with a huge collection of draft assets. And we could have given them that, and they decided to go to another team for that. And that's my alley for you.
Well, I just want to correct something before we get into that. But you said you're pretty sure it's descending. I've heard, and there's been no official details on his contract. Even looking on Spotrac, they only have estimates, and the estimates are for the full $120 million. That's with the incentives included. But I've heard that it cannot be a descending contract for the $120 million. So it either has to be a flat 26 or 27 mil per year, or 28 mil per year, or it has to be ascending. And if it's ascending, it'll start off at 26. By the time it's done, it'll be 33 mil, assuming he hits all-star, all-NBA, or whatever, whatever incentives he needs to hit in order to get that max amount of money per Spotrac. Now, back to the alley. I'll finish that with dunk. Donovan Mitchell is traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, not the New York Knicks. The Cavaliers are sending Jazz forward, their forward, Lauri Markkanen. Mm-hmm. They're sending rookie wing Ochai Agbaji, who I believe we did talk about before the draft.
Yeah.
Guard Colin Sexton, who we've talked about potentially trading for. 3 unprotected first-round picks, 25, 27, and 2029 first-round picks, as well as 2 pick swaps, 2026 and 2028. All of that for Donovan Mitchell. That's the haul. That's a haul. Basically, the Cavs gave up 5 years of draft control to the Utah Jazz. Could the Knicks have matched that? Yeah, they could have. If they did match that, how would I feel about that? And how do I feel about this deal? I'm back and forth on it, honestly. Back and forth on the deal. And my initial instinct was, damn, they sent them Colin Sexton, Agbaji, and 3 unprotected firsts and 2 pick swaps. I'm pretty sure the Jazz would have asked the Knicks not to match it, but to beat it. And the only way that the Knicks could beat it is by putting RJ Barrett in the deal. And by that time, he already had the extension, which means that they would have had to give up all their young players and 3 first-round picks. They'd have to give up Quickly, Grimes, and Obi, and 3 first-round picks to match that deal. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. A lot of people, point at, the Knicks would have had to give up 25, 27, 29. I don't think the Knicks would have had to do that. I do think that there was a possibility that the Knicks could have given up 3 unprotected first-round picks and still been able to keep enough in the treasure chest for a future deal. A lot of people forget that you are allowed to trade a pick in back-to-back years if you have an unprotected first from somebody else. The Knicks have unprotected first from the Dallas Mavericks this year, 2023. They have their own unprotected first. They have next year's unprotected first. The Knicks could have potentially given up both the Dallas Mavericks and their unprotected first and a 2025, or 2024. They could have done 23 Knicks, 24 Knicks, and 2026 Knicks picks. They could have done anything before getting to 2027, 2028, 2029, and still given up 3 unprotected firsts. So I understand Leon Rose's need to, keep as many picks as possible for the next deal for the bigger star. But I thought that if it came down to giving up 3 picks, I would have been comfortable with it. When it started coming out that RJ Barrett was a part of these deals, that's when it got shaky for me.
And it's honestly all speculation.
Well, it's not all speculation. RJ Barrett was going to be traded out. Like he was an option, yes, but he was an option because Leon Rose saw the way Ainge was moving, and he was like, all right, let's keep the picks number down. I'm throwing RJ Barrett. That's our best asset. So, from all accounts, to me anyway, and the way it reads is that the closest that the Knicks and the Jazz were getting to getting a deal done, all of the closest deals involved RJ Barrett. So,
but it never fell through, and that tells me something. It's like, here's what. Well, this is based off all the reports because there were so many reports that were just contradicting throughout these past few months. There was people saying a month ago that everything's been agreed on. It's going to be announced in the next few days. Weeks passed, nothing. And then we hear reports like there's like Woj, just days before, just said there's no other teams really in the running. It's the Knicks to lose, Ian Begley said. Yep. And then there's another report. There's a team out there that has an offer that Danny Ainge really likes in case talks with New York fall through. Everyone's like, that's just Ainge leaking stuff to the media to try and put some pressure on the Knicks. Then we see the RJ Barrett extension come through.
Well, some of that is not really contradictory, right?
Well, I was going to keep going because go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, as negotiations go on, things change. Mm-hmm. The only thing that to me was really contradictory was that, as recently as 3 weeks ago, we were getting reports that RJ Barrett is there's no interest from either side. Mm-hmm. Jazz is not interested in RJ, and the Knicks are not interested in RJ. All of a sudden, it's like, well, actually, RJ Barrett has been part of these discussions for a long time. So it's like, that's the contradictory part. Mm-hmm. The part about, them being close and all that stuff, that's possible. They probably were close, but when it got down to the nickel and diamond, they couldn't agree. So then, they fell apart. The Cleveland Cavaliers were like, it's not that they came out of nowhere. They were a part of it. What they offered to the Jazz was not as good as what the Knicks were offering to the Jazz, or could potentially offer to the Jazz. So they fell back. And then once RJ Barrett came out of the deal because he got that extension, the Cavs came back. Hey, you still interested in what we have to offer? We'll give you this. And Ainge was like, okay, yeah, I'll take it. So, that the Knicks were the only suitors. Yeah, probably at one time they were, because the Cavs fell back. And then Leon Rose was like, listen, we're going to sign RJ. I'm tired of this back and forth with you. Either take him or don't take him. And that was really the trigger. That was really the thing that pushed everything to go in the way that it did. Because if he didn't sign RJ Barrett, they probably would still be talking.
Well, that's the thing I was going to lead to. There was another contradictory report because Mark Berman saying the Knicks had heard that the Cleveland trade was going to go through, and that's why they signed RJ Barrett to try to save face. And it's just like there's so many of these reports that just contradict each other.
Well, I think
it's just like you don't know what to follow anymore, and it's just like as soon as I heard, I'm not sure if it was Tim Bontemps from ESPN. He was basically saying how every executive around the NBA expects Donovan Mitchell to be traded to the Knicks.
Right.
The minute I heard that is when I started doubting that this trade was going to go through. Because anytime you hear something like that with the Knicks, this is what follows. Remember Carmelo was supposed to get traded to Houston?
Right.
They said it was at the 5-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
He gets traded to OKC. Like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. It's guaranteed they're going to go to New York. Goes to Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I think what Berman reported, I think that there's a way that you could read that and be like, well, no. What he meant to say was the reason the Knicks announced the contract extension to RJ Barrett is because they heard what was going to happen with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Because if you think about it like that, okay, how did this all go down? He gave him deadline. You have until the end of Monday. If you don't, we're pulling this trade. This trade. Ainge called his bluff. The end of the day, the report came out. Knicks are going to sign RJ Barrett. The Knicks didn't announce it. Woj announced it. And then once Woj announced it, the Cavs came back and was like, hey, we in here. You want this? We'll give you 3 picks. Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, and Lauri Markkanen. You want it? And he said, yeah, I'll take that. I want my 3 picks. Give me them 3 unprotected picks. I want control of your draft for 5 years. And once he said, yeah, that got leaked to the Knicks. And, it's true. Right before the trade was leaked or announced, the Knicks came out with we're signing RJ. This is Leon Rose put the statement out. And then that's when that whole thing happened. So, I don't think that they signed him as a reaction to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's even though that's how Berman wrote it. I think what he meant was that they announced it once they heard, because, nothing's really official until the team announces, contract extensions, contract signings, whatever, the rumor or the leak that comes before the report or the team announcing. That's time for you to add or subtract or whatever it is that you need to do.
What was your reaction when you first saw that Cleveland traded for D. Mitch?
My first reaction was confused. I was confused. I was like, wait, Cleveland? And then, so I didn't believe it at first. I was like, nah, that's gotta be. But, when you're reading it from official, reporters and newspapers and stuff like that, I had to see what the haul was. And once I saw what the haul was, I had to think, there's no way that this trade happens without RJ Barrett and 3 unprotected picks. Or actually, 3 unprotected picks and at least 1 young player. Because even though I like RJ Barrett more than I like Colin Sexton is more accomplished in his career.
But Colin Sexton was also a free agent that had basically relatively no offers from any teams.
Yes, this is true. But in order to get this deal done, Colin Sexton had to agree to a signing trade. Mm-hmm. So at that, that kind of makes that a wash. So now you're just comparing Colin Sexton to RJ Barrett, the player, because either way, you're either going to flip Colin Sexton on whatever deal, or you're gonna flip RJ Barrett, or you're gonna run one of those guys as the face of your franchise while you're rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Sexton's accomplished more. Colin Sexton has been doing this 20-point per game, play longer than RJ Barrett has.
But the scoring is like the only difference. Defense, RJ's way better. He's bigger in size. He guards in multiple positions. It's like I don't see equals when I see Colin Sexton and RJ Barrett. I see Danny Ainge took a less appealing trade to spite the Knicks. That was my
I don't know.
reaction.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say it was a less appealing trade, because the Knicks, by most accounts, not all, but by most accounts, the Knicks were only offering RJ Barrett and 2 unprotected.
Mm-hmm.
You taking RJ Barrett and 2 unprotected, you taking Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, and 3 unprotected.
RJ Barrett and 2 unprotected it wasn't the final offer, though. It was literally just the final offer that had RJ Barrett in it. If Danny Ainge wants picks, and that's what he's prioritizing, then there's another package that we can give surrounding picks. Like,
well, yes,
I'm gonna get into it in a second, but that was Danny Ainge's priority to leave with the boatload of picks for Donovan Mitchell, and we had that to give, and we were willing to give picks as long as we didn't have to tie it to the players that we want to keep.
Right.
And if you see the players that were attached to this trade, it's like they took Ochai Agbaji and Lowry Markkanen, and we had to give up Quentin Grimes with RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley with picks.
Right. I forgot about the quickly aspect of it. And that's, I agree with you. No, now that I've remembered and recalled that Quickley was part of the deal. It was RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, 2 unprotected picks. They probably were putting all of the protected picks in it as well, and probably some swaps. I have to say that is a better deal than the one that Ainge ended up doing. So now that back in my mind, I think Ainge kind of panicked.
Well,
and I think that I think he panicked because he tried to call Leon Rose's bluff. Leon Rose said, "Yo, you have until the end of Monday. If by the end of Monday you don't take this, then we're just gonna move on." Ainge assumed that he was bluffing, or that James Dolan was gonna step in.
Yeah.
And assumed that the Knicks needed Donovan Mitchell more than he needed to trade Donovan Mitchell. So he called his bluff. Leon Rose said, "Don't call my bluff." Signs RJ. And at that point, Ainge is like, "Well, that was a sucker move. You shouldn't have did that." Cleveland came through. Was like, "Yo, we'll offer you 3 and Colin Sexton." And Ainge probably saw the way Leon Rose was moving and was like, "Yo, he's not going to give me exactly what I want." So he went to the next guy. "Oh, you're going to give me exactly what I want? I'll take it." And yes, if he would have accepted the trade that the Knicks were offering, that would have been a better deal. But he wanted 3 unprotected picks. And if he wanted 3 unprotected picks, he should have took Emmanuel Quickley out of the deal.
Like, if you're going to take Lowry Markkanen and Ochai, you could take Deuce McBride, Cam Reddish. I don't see why we got to give up RJ Barrett and they don't have to give up Darius Garland. They don't have to give up Jared Allen.
Right. Well, Jared Allen is, these are all stars you're talking about. So, except for
an all-star, so has Julius Randle, and they didn't want Julius Randle. So it's like, I don't think you have to be an all-star. You have to be a young, talented player to get Donovan Mitchell in. And Donovan Mitchell is an all-star player, multiple-time all-star player. So you should want some young player back. Well, if you're going to be targeting R.J. Barrett and all these dudes, because R.J. Barrett's going to be an all-star one day.
Well, my point is that the R.J. Barrett in Cleveland is Colin Sexton. And I'll tell you why. Because the upside is what you're banking on in the trade. Darius Garland is already solidified, right? Evan Mobley is already looked at as potentially one of the next, big defenders in the league, right? All of those guys are right now viewed as above RJ Barrett when it comes to, talent in the league. If you offer those guys up, that's 100% a better deal than anything the Knicks could offer if you're putting them in a deal with 3 first-round picks. As much as I love RJ Barrett, as much as I believe in his future, and I believe in his future all-star campaign, I think that he's going to be, key, on whatever franchise he's on. The fact of the matter is he still hasn't proven it to a convincing degree. So, and it's the same thing with Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton's numbers are there, but everybody is still kind of like, I'm not scared to have Colin Sexton on this team, but I see why people are looking kind of funny at him the same way I see why people kind of look funny at RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett has to work on his consistency. He has to work on his efficiency. And once he does one of those 2 things, he doesn't need to do both. He needs to do one of those 2 things. And once he does that, it's going to be a clear cut. All right, this dude is either an all-star or close to an all-star. That's why I say Colin Sexton and RJ Barrett are about equal. Now, Manuel Quickley is more proven than Agbaji and is better than Markkanen. So I guess it does, at the end of the day, it comes down to the first-round picks.
That's what I'm saying.
It comes down to the first-round picks. And the Cavs gave up 3, and the Knicks were only willing to give up 2.
With RJ.
This is hard, man. It's hard for me to kind of... Should Leon Rose have just said, all right, you want that 3rd pick? Fine. Before saying he's pulling RJ Barrett from the deal? Or should he have said, all right, if you want 2 first-round picks, you want Quentin Grimes too, can we put somebody else besides Quentin Grimes? Will you accept that? And I don't think he would have. I think that's where the line in the sand was drawn. So I think ultimately Leon Rose had to decide between giving up that extra unprotected or giving up this deal. And he chose to give up the deal.
But it's been reported that they were willing to offer the 3rd pick, top 5 protected. So a lightly protected first-round pick.
I think that was getting it done with Ainge. I think he wanted it completely unprotected.
But Danny Ainge is willing to take 3 first-round picks from Cleveland Cavaliers, who now have all their best players with Donovan Mitchell, didn't have to give up much of their depth. All they really gave up was draft picks and guys that they didn't really want anyway. So I think those picks are more valuable than 2 unprotected Knicks picks and a top 5 protected, even 2025, 2027 pick.
I think
with
that's
pick
why
swaps and probably protected pick. Like, I don't see it. I feel like this was definitely to spite the Knicks.
Well, before we get into that, I think that's why at the end of the day, I think we're both comfortable now, right?
Yeah.
I think after sitting on it for a few days, I'm comfortable because the Cavs can afford to give up a Colin Sexton and 3 unprotected first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks are not comfortable giving up RJ Barrett and 3 unprotected first-round picks.
Shouldn't have to.
Like, in order for them to give up 3 unprotected first-round picks, they would have to pull quickly from the deal. And if they pull quickly from the deal, I don't know. It's just based on talent and valuation and what's more important to you. You know what I mean? For the Utah Jazz, they're not looking at it as, oh, obviously Quickly and Grimes are more important to you, so I should value them that way. He's only valuing it as far as what I can get. So
I disagree.
No, well, you could disagree, but as far as what he's getting in the situation, he wanted 2 young players and he wanted 3 unprotected. And this deal with the Cavs, he got 2 young players and 3 unprotected. It didn't matter. I don't think it matters to him how important they were to Agbaji and Sexton were to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't think it mattered to him how important RJ Barrett is to the New York Knicks. He just knew that their highest profile young player was RJ Barrett. The Cavs' highest profile young player that was not an all-star is Colin Sexton. As far as that goes for him, that's even. All right, let me get another young player and 3 unprotected. The Knicks said no. The Cavs said yes. And at the end of the day, the Knicks should have said no. And the Cavs should have said yes. So this kind of played out the way that it should, unless RJ Barrett doesn't, and Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes, they don't get better. And if they don't get better, then this is a deal that Leon Rose should have made. Whatever Ainge was asking for is a deal they should have made. On its face, I can't say that it's a deal that they should have made. I'm actually glad that that this is kind of the way that it went. I would have liked for Ainge to kind of come back to the table, but if they came back to the table and the Knicks made an offer that matched this deal with the Cavs, I probably would have not been happy with it.
I'm gonna give you I have a theory. It's gonna require some retrospection, if that's a word. You remember the first round series between Dallas and Utah and how the Knicks showed up?
Yes.
And members of the Utah organization were pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that from that moment, Danny Ainge understanding that Donovan Mitchell wants to leave, he didn't request a trade, and that's when he decided to trade Rudy Gobert. Well, not decided, because I felt like they were always going to trade Rudy Gobert, but now that Minnesota made the offer, all right, we're going to trade Rudy Gobert, and with the Knicks, we're going to entertain them for Donovan Mitchell, but we're gonna get them for everything. Since Brian Windhorst went on Bart and Hahn and was talking about how there was more emotions involved in this trade deal. I'm gonna talk about that next, but that's how it felt the whole way through. Before Brian Windhorst ever even said that, I'm thinking it seems like there's a little bit more going on here. Leon Rose was upset because he felt like Danny Ainge was asking for an unreasonable package he wasn't willing to budge off of, and I'm just thinking okay, realistically speaking, if no other team has anything to equal up to one of our lowest offers, then why should we go all out and give you what you're asking for? And that makes perfect sense. So I think Danny Ainge is petty. He's good. My initial reaction to this trade when it first happened was that I felt relief because there was so many months going and dragging this thing on. But now today I'm thinking more about it since the trade has been announced. And I'm just thinking Danny Ainge is really good. He not only strung us along the whole time knowing that we wouldn't budge off our position, but to spite us, he doesn't trade him to some other team in the West. No, he trades him to the team in the East, and he's a guard. I feel like there's a lot of all-stars in the East now that's going to make it harder for the Knicks. And in return, he receives Colin Sexton, which is another player that the Knicks covet and have been trying to pursue. So now he's okay, we ain't going to talk about Donovan Mitchell, but you still interested in Colin Sexton, right? Come and talk to us about him, and we're going to get some of them picks off of him too. if we don't decide to keep him. Hey, it's a smart move. But
Well,
at the same time, I don't see, this is all best case scenario thinking. Like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell wants to be in New York. In 2025, the first minute he becomes a free agent, he's probably going to be the first thing smoking out of Cleveland for New York City. And that's what will make the Cleveland picks valuable. But you forgetting that Evan Mobley's still really good, Darius Garland's still really good, and his team is really good. And that could persuade Donovan Mitchell to stay a few more years if they're going on runs in the playoffs. So, yeah, you got the picks until 2027, 2029 maybe, but who's to say that they're going to be a bad team? The best case scenario is Donovan Mitchell leaves, Darius Garland leaves, and because there's so many young players on this team that not everybody can stay to get paid, I don't believe. I think when Evan Mobley has a contract extension, maybe there's decisions that need to be made, but I'm not too certain. I haven't really done too much research on Cleveland Cavaliers salary cap issues in the future. But I do know Donovan Mitchell has spent the entire summer here in New York. Everyone felt like he was going to be a Knick. He was in Rucker Park. He kept going to all these places in New York at the Mets games. He wants to be a Knick. And I do see him coming to the Knicks eventually, but I'm not 100% certain it's going to be the next time he's a free agent. And if he does stay in Cleveland, now the trade looks even worse for Danny Ainge. Because you knew Donovan Mitchell wanted to be in New York and you traded him to Cleveland. That's a bad look already. Players ain't going to go to Utah in the first place. So that already makes it another reason why players won't feel comfortable going there, because Danny Ainge had a reputation in Boston. Isaiah Thomas, after his sister died, still played in the playoffs for y'all. And then as soon as the playoffs was over, they shipped him out for Kyrie. It's a cutthroat business when you're dealing with Danny Ainge. And yeah, you're going to get cut if you're playing with him. And then every time you see a negotiation happening with Danny Ainge, it's always a haul. And he always comes out on the other end looking so smart. But I don't know if this situation is going to be the same as the past situations.
Well, you said a lot there. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to speculate whether this was spiteful or not. To me, I always try to look at things and try to take the emotion out of it, or at least see if there's a way for things to transpire where it's not emotional. It's just the way things went. Obviously, part of it is emotional, but I don't know if the part of it that trading Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers in totality is emotional. I think that Ainge got tired of dealing with Leon Rose, not giving him what he wanted. I think he made a gamble that the Knicks were not going to, take a hardline stance, and he lost that gamble. And when he lost that gamble, he said, "I'm just going to take the next best thing." He could have kept going with the Knicks, but he decided he didn't want to do that. He got the 3 picks that he wanted. He got the young players that he wanted. He accepted it.
Did he? Did he?
He accepted. He did.
He got 3 picks. You could have got 3 picks from any team.
He couldn't get 3 picks from any team.
Picks that
he wanted 3
would be good.
He wanted 3 unprotected picks that he thought would be good. And it's a very good chance that if this situation in Cleveland doesn't work out, first of all, Cleveland is not a big market team. Second of all, if this doesn't work out between Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they have no championship aspirations, unless somebody else shows up and becomes a top 10 player in the league. There's a very good chance, as you have indicated, that those picks could be really good ones. I think that if he makes that trade for the Knicks, the 3 picks that he would get probably won't, it's probably about even with what the Cleveland Cavaliers gave up. Because I would think that if Donovan Mitchell comes to New York, he's staying. He's re-signing. He wants to be here, as you said. He loves it here. He wants a big market team.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to say, it's really easy to look and say, oh yeah, this is probably spiteful. But honestly, if you look at it logically, it makes sense. And there's this made the Cleveland Cavaliers a better team, 100%. They're going to be in the playoffs, 100%. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know where to go with this. If the Knicks pull off a trade that beats this trade from the Cavs, I would not be happy. And I don't think that it would have been better for the Knicks. If Donovan Mitchell,
take much to beat this trade.
What do you? All right, we're gonna veer off track for 2 minutes. What do you think beats this trade that you would be happy with?
Well, no trade with Danny Ainge. I don't feel like you could leave off happy. What I can stomach is Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish, Deuce McBride, a combination of those 3 players. It doesn't have to be all 3. With Evan Fournier and 3 unprotected picks. Well, no. 3 unprotected New York picks. Maybe we'll keep the top 5 protection on one, and then maybe 1 protected first-round pick from another team, and then some pick swaps. That's better than this trade right here. Because now you're getting 4 picks on top of pick swaps. Since we didn't draft nobody in the lottery, you'll get 4 picks.
You said Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish, Deuce McBride, 4 firsts,
2 out of the
Knicks.
3. 4 firsts, Evan Fournier.
That does beat this trade. I don't think that you can do that trade. Without Utah.
But wait, hold on. Think about that right there. That beats the trade. So why do we have to talk about RJ Barrett, not Deuce McBride, Quentin Grimes, and Emmanuel Quickly? That's my point where I'm saying this is definitely it's more to it than just.
Let me ponder this.
No, there's emotion.
Let me ponder this. Obi Toppin, Deuce, Evan Fournier. You said 2 out of the 3, right? Obi, Evan, Cam, 2 out of the 3?
No. I'm talking about young players, 2 out of the 3. Obi, Cam, and Deuce. Not all 3. To pick any 2. If you want to pick Deuce and Cam with Evan Fournier, that gets this done. With 4 first-round picks.
But that's what I said earlier. I don't think Leon Rose was comfortable giving up that many picks. He was just trying to give up 2. Right? 3 was probably
unprotected.
3 unprotected picks.
Is the part that's like the most important.
Right. 3 unprotected picks. Is where this all fell apart. Leon Rose is willing to give up 3 unprotected picks. But if you're giving up 3, I'm not giving up RJ Barrett. And Danny Ainge is like, well, if I'm only getting 3, I want RJ Barrett. And he went to Cavs with the same kind of mentality. If I'm only getting 3, I want Colin Sexton. And I agree with you. There were deals that the Knicks could do that are better than this deal. I just don't think Leon Rose was comfortable with that deal. And I don't think Ainge would have
find that
accepted.
so hard to believe.
I highly doubt
Because of the
Leon
fact that-
Rose.
of the trade reports.
Well, the trade reports are that third pick, he was going to make it top 5 protected. If he's making a top 5 protected third pick, I highly doubt that he's going to give a third pick unprotected completely and a top 5 protection on another pick. Could he do it? 100%.
No.
But
that's not what I was saying. I'm saying the third pick would have the top 5 protection still and another team's protected first round pick. For example, Milwaukee's top 5 protected pick. You could throw that in there with pick swaps. That beats this trade from Cleveland.
I don't think so. If you're talking about 2 unprotected first,
that's 2 unprotected, 1 lightly protected, and another team's lightly protected pick. That's 4 first round picks.
I mean,
do you see Milwaukee being top 5 drafted?
I don't think that.
So that's most likely a pick that's gonna.
I think that that Ainge wanted 3 completely unprotected picks because if you never know, if you end up in that lottery, I want to be in that top 5. Are you comfortable doing 3 completely unprotected picks in the trade? Because that's what it comes down to. Whether you think that a third top 5 protected pick is on top of another top 5 protected pick, if you think that's a better deal, that's cool. I personally want all unprotected, right? I don't care whether you never know, like, I don't care if is Milwaukee gonna be a top 5. You never know if if they have one injury and now they have to tank that year. And now maybe they're not the bottom 5 worst, but you don't have to be a bottom 5 worst to have a top 5 pick, right? So you never know in these situations. Golden State, this just happened. All their top players got hurt, and that now those picks that they had when Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant got traded. Now they went from being championship contenders to one of the worst teams in the league. You can't predict it. So me personally, I want completely unprotected picks because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if Donovan Mitchell is going to get hurt that year. And now you have to pivot into a tank. If you pivot into a tank and you have your own pick and you have a top 5 protected pick, that's better for you than it is for me. So
in the instance that everything goes according to the plan, that's what I'm saying. Those 3 unprotected picks could all be outside of the lottery. All 3.
Correct.
They all could be at the back end of the first round.
But that's why he's asking for unprotected completely, because there is a chance that they could be in the top 5. And if they're in the top 5, I want to have control over that. I want full control. And top 5 protected is not full control. So, and when you look at it from that perspective, I hear what you're saying, French. 100% I hear what you're saying. On its face, to us, that's definitely having 4 picks, even with 2 lightly protected ones. That's definitely a much better trade than 3 unprotected picks. I would take that, me personally. But some GMs don't run that way, and Danny Ainge is one of those guys. He wants completely unprotected picks, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It's not about whether on face value to him it's a better trade or not. I want as much unprotected picks as I can get in a deal. And if you don't want to give it to me, I'm going to the next spot who can give me as many unprotected picks as I can get in a deal. And that's what he did. And, when you try to get into the brain of Danny Ainge and you try to get into the brain of Leon Rose and you see what it would have taken, I'm perfectly fine. I think the Knicks did the right thing. And I don't think that it necessarily, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't think that it necessarily has to do with hurt feelings. I think that he didn't come back to the Knicks to try to one up the deal. I think that was probably hurt feelings, but I'm at the end of the day, it's a business. He wanted to move Donovan Mitchell. He's getting his 3 unprotected picks. He didn't think he was getting 3 unprotected picks from Leon Rose. I'm just going to go with this and keep it moving. We've been doing this for weeks, for over a month now, damn near 2 months. Let me just get this over and done with. And, he could have been patient and he could have tried to see if he could squeeze more out of the Knicks. He didn't do it. I'm not mad about it. It is what it is at this point. So,
well, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to be like, well, now that we didn't get Donovan Mitchell,
I just wanted to add one last thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Because the speculation where Brian Windhorst went on Barton Hahn, it also proves something in terms of my theory about this being a really emotional standoff. Because Brian Windhorst, he was giving a lot of information on how the trade negotiations went between Danny Ainge and Leon Rose. He was saying that there was some third grade stuff going on. He was saying that there was emotions involved. And after RJ Barrett signed that extension, there was no more communication between both sides. So once Cleveland reached out to them with that offer, they didn't go back to the Knicks to see if they would top that. They just accepted it, and that was that. If you're a GM, don't you want to see if a team, that wasn't the purpose of these last few months to see if they can go and find another team and have the Knicks beat that offer? He didn't give the Knicks an opportunity to beat that offer. The Knicks were caught blindsided by this report, and I feel like that's personal. He was tired of dealing with Leon Rose, and he wanted to let them know, listen, you want to sign RJ Barrett when I said I didn't want him on that contract? Cool. I'm going to give you some pow-pow. You're not getting Donovan Mitchell. I'm sending him to the East for y'all to deal with for years to come. And if you get lucky and get him in a few years, you're only going to be helping me with them draft picks that I just acquired. And you making that team worse. So you helping me. I appreciate that. And we still have Colin Sexton, by the way, if you want to trade him and give him some picks too.
Is that right? I was gonna say, is that hurt feelings or is that calculation? I mean, think about that.
Either perspective.
Oh, exactly. It depends on your perspective. It does depend on your perspective. He said, I'm just gonna bank on that these picks that I'm getting from the Cavs are gonna be better than the picks that I'm gonna get from the Knicks when we agree on whatever trade the Knicks are going to do, because the Knicks are going to try to secure their future. The Cavs are not securing their future because they're trying to secure their present with Donovan Mitchell. So I'm going to bet that if they bet on Donovan Mitchell and it fails, these picks that I'm getting, they're going to be done after their initial contract with Donovan Mitchell, which means that he might not even be there, which means that they might suck. And if they suck, these picks are going to be great. If I do this trade with the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell is there in 2025, 2026, he's probably going to be there for the next 10 years. I can't say that if I do this, if I go back to the Knicks, that's going to be better than this deal as far as the picks go. So I'm going to trade with the Cavs. I'm going to go with the Cavs.
If team in this front office, let me say one thing. The beauty of this front office is that we have so many first round picks that are not Knicks first round picks. Right. So it doesn't have to be all our. If you want unprotected, then maybe it does have to be all ours.
It does.
But we have a boatload of picks to choose from.
Well,
continue.
I think it's just calculation. I'm going to send him there, and if Donovan Mitchell really wants to be in New York and he goes to New York, that's just going to be better for me. And as a business decision, as a GM, maybe he did take all of that into consideration and said, you know what, I'm just going to do this deal because it's going to work out for me either way when I do this deal. There's more risk trading with the Knicks with me not getting everything that I want. And you could say that that's petty. You could say, or you could say it's calculation. So, I see that you have here that the Knicks might not make the playoffs.
It's very real. It's a very real possibility.
Absolutely. There's a lot of good teams in the East, but the Cavs were already ahead of the Knicks in the playoffs last season. So I don't think that guarantees right. I don't think that guarantees that one way or another. I think that we have to look to see if we're better than the Hornets and if we're still better than all the teams that were better than us last year. If we're better than the Hornets and all the teams that we were better than last year, we're in the play-in.
Mm-hmm. But I felt like last year was an outlier because there was so many games that we should have won that our standing didn't really represent the team that we were. The year before didn't really represent the team that we were either because we overachieved to a large degree, mainly due to like empty
Julius
seats,
Randle.
not big Julius Randle playing like an all-NBA player. Like there was a lot of outliers for the last 2 seasons. So the next season, I believe it should be something in between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the East got better,
much.
So did our young players. Our young players also have gotten better. They've developed more chemistry together. They made it to the Summer League championship game, which I know people don't really pay any attention to Summer League championships. They don't really view it as any type of accomplishment. I do. I feel like to get to Summer League championship, you do have to be a talented young team who plays well together. And the 2 best teams were Portland and the Knicks. Portland won the championship in Summer League. I'm not going to ignore that when the regular season starts because a few years ago, Lonzo Ball was the Summer League MVP. Yeah, he's not going to be MVP in the NBA, but he's a very valuable player. Every single player on that Lakers team that was valuable back then with Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, they got traded for Anthony Davis, number 1. And they're all thriving in their roles. Kyle Kuzma in Washington, one of the best players on their team. Brandon Ingram is the best player on their team when Zion's not playing. Lonzo Ball, very significant player for the Chicago Bulls. Like, Summer League isn't something to ignore when it comes to, like, accomplishments, I feel like. Not for the most part, but just in recent history. And you're going to continue to see steps from these players on the Knicks. And I feel like that's going to come with more success during the regular season. Yeah, there's a lot of players on Cleveland that are really good. The reason why I say that it's almost guaranteeing that they're ahead of us now is because they're overwhelming in talent. Last season when we played Cleveland, I felt like the talent was more equal. And I feel like with teams in the East, if you start going down the line of like who has the best rosters, the Knicks aren't going to come up until maybe 10. And that's just
I have the standings. I have last year's standings in front of me. And 1 through 6, I'll say 1 through 5. 1 through 5, the Knicks definitely not better than, right? Miami Heat, Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, Toronto Raptors. Then you got 6 Chicago Bulls, which really, they started off the year great. Then they tailed off at the end of the year when Lonzo got hurt, And Lonzo is always an injury question. So who knows with Chicago?
Caruso.
They played really bad. Caruso as well. They played really bad to end the season. They were the number 1 seed at one point, and they finished 46-36. Their last 10 games, they were 4-6, sub 500. So, who's to say with the Chicago Bulls? I'm going to lump them in with the rest of with the next 10, the Brooklyn Nets, Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Charlotte Hornets.
Well, Brooklyn has talent, so they would go above all of them, I feel like.
Brooklyn should have been above all of them last season as well. And what the thing with Brooklyn should be up there in the top 6. They should be up there in the top 6. But what happened?
Brooklyn made
James Harden. They did. But what happened? James Harden, right? Wanted to get traded. And before that, injury issues with KD. injury issues with James Harden. Is that going away? Is the injury issues with KD going away? Is the injury issues with Ben Simmons, who still hasn't played a game for the Brooklyn Nets? Is that going to go away?
That's
and
why
if it
it's
does
like
go
an
away,
outlier.
and if it does go away, is he gonna score for Brooklyn? You know, what like, and also yes, it does have to do with the ability for Kyrie Irving to play on now that all COVID stuff is going away. Now he's gonna be able to play more home games, but he had injury issues too. Like when there was the big three with all three of them, KD, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, they barely played together before James Harden got traded. They had what,
Quick
2
note.
seasons together, and they had maybe like
Quick-
10 games where they played together. Go ahead.
Quick note. The last episode, we were basically clowning, or the last episode we had together, we were clowning KD for requesting a trade. We didn't even address that he's now staying in Brooklyn, and that's why we're saying the Brooklyn is still going to be in the playoff hunt. But I don't see them really making any noise in the playoffs. Just like, you can't go from that with all this stuff happening with Ben Simmons coming off of back surgery, hasn't played in years, Kyrie Irving always injured. Like, I still don't really view Brooklyn in high regard, but I definitely would put them ahead of the Knicks right now in a short margin, just because of the talent that's on their team. Like, last year, we should have swept Brooklyn, and we ended up getting swept. Like, it was literally just due to the talent that's on that team. We had them beat in the first half, first 3 quarters, and they would just have Kevin Durant and Kyrie, and then game over. We don't have that still to this day, so realistically, you have to put them ahead of us. Toronto is another one of those teams that I don't know for certain if that they're better than us. They do have better players, system, they have chemistry that they've been together for a long time. But so do we. I don't see anyone on that team being super talented to the point that we can't stop them. And yeah, they were top 5 last year, but it's tough. I feel like they're another team that we're in the vicinity of. But Charlotte, we're better than. All the stuff that they're going through right now. I feel like I can name the teams that we're better than quicker than I can name the teams that we're on par with. Orlando.
Well, here. Orlando, Detroit, Indiana. It's Orlando, Detroit, Indiana, Washington. Those were the teams that the Knicks were better than last season. Those are the teams that we were better than last season. Orlando, Detroit, Indiana, Washington.
It's tough. Detroit has the talent, but that don't always translate to win. So
correct.
I would say that we're on par with them.
I don't honestly, it really depends on what we prioritize. And let's try to wrap this up quickly, because I'm pretty sure we're running long. Now what, right? Now what? Now that we haven't traded for Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. Like, we have to commit to the youth at this point, right? You don't almost get the guy and say no because it's too much, unless you really have faith in RJ Barrett, and you really have faith in Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, Manuel Quickly. Like, there's a lot of people saying like, oh, the Knicks tried to give up all the young players for Donovan Mitchell. And literally, if they wanted to do that, they could have done that. I'm sure if the Knicks put in all the young players and 2 unprotected picks, Danny Ainge would have accepted that. Knicks didn't want to do that. Knicks only wanted to give up RJ and Quickly and 2 unprotected. So, you're obviously committing to the youth movement, and you're keeping the picks for the next potential star. after the Donovan Mitchell trade if you do it. They thought that doing more than that was too much. They didn't want to give up more than 2. They were willing to give up RJ because Donovan Mitchell was that good. With that being said, they weren't like, yo, we want RJ here. And you're not valuing him as much as we're valuing him. So because you're not valuing him as much as we're valuing him, we're going to sign him. Obviously, they believe in RJ. Obviously, they believe he's going to be really good. They basically chose RJ Barrett over Donovan Mitchell. Whether they intentionally did that or not, whether that was in the forefront of their mind or not, the failure to get this trade done means I believe in RJ, I believe in Quickly, I believe in Obi Toppin, I believe in Quentin Grimes. Maybe they believe in Cam Reddish. I don't know. But
Quentin Grimes, they held out of all trade negotiations.
Well, there was some back and forth in regards to that too. But either way, now that you haven't done this trade, you have to make them the focal point of this team, right? You have to make them the focal point of this team. You have to give them as many minutes as possible. What does that mean? It means that Julius Randle needs to be off the team by the trade deadline. For sure. You cannot increase Obi Toppin. You cannot increase Obi Toppin's trade value with Julius Randle on the team. You just can't do it. And he's a better fit for the majority of the team than Julius Randle anyway. So one of them has to go. Either Obi or Julius has to go. And, according to, I don't know if we're believing Tommy D after some of his reporting, because he was one of those guys that said that the deal was almost done. The Knicks had a deal in place where Obi, I just had it up and I just moved away from it. Obi and 4 picks was the crux of the deal. There was another player in there. That was a deal that could have gotten done that didn't get done. And if they would have did that, I probably would have not been happy either. With that said, they didn't want to do that. So you have to invest in these guys now. You have to see what you have there. And if you're going to trade them, you have to know what the max of their potential is, which means either Julius needs to go or Obi needs to go now.
Yeah.
Fournier has to come off the bench.
Julius needs to go.
And that's how I feel too. But the front office has to make a choice. Fournier has to come off the bench. The starting lineup featuring Brunson, Barrett, Grimes, Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson needs to be the focal point by season end. Rose, Quickly, Fournier, Reddish if he's not traded, and Hartenstein should round out the rotation. If Reddish is not part of the rotation at the end, and maybe he gets packaged in a deal with Fournier, I'd welcome a Carmelo Anthony reunion. But that's it. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen now. How about you? What do you think?
I don't think Melo
plans changed. You think plans changed for the Knicks?
I don't think the plan changed much. It would have changed had we made the Donovan Mitchell trade, because the plan going into the offseason was to prioritize the young players, and they got rid of Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kemba Walker back in the draft. They brought us a point guard in Jalen Brunson, and from the sounds of all the reports outside of like the trade rumors, it sounds like Quentin Grimes is going to be the starting guard next to Jalen Brunson with RJ. I feel like the only thing left to do for this offseason to be a full success is for there to be a guarantee for Obi Toppin to be the starting power forward of the team. It sounds like Tom Thibodeau has made that realization that he should trust Obi to play more. He realized he should have been playing more at the end of the season. So even if we don't have a Julius Randle trade, maybe we have Julius Randle coming off the bench this year. And him and Evan Fournier could be the new energy off the bench where they start going at the second unit and just having outstanding games. Maybe Julius Randle finds that offensive and requests a trade. Who knows? All we know is that the formula for Julius Randle being the best player on his team and everyone else being better around him, that seems to have run its course. So, yeah, Leon Rose already said to the fans that prioritizing the young players is what the plan of the offseason is going to be. They haven't really derived off, or am I using derived right there? They haven't really gone off course. They just went after Donovan Mitchell because he's available. They, like any team would, because if you have a chance to get Donovan Mitchell, yeah, you try to get him. But if the asking price is too high, then walk away. And that's what we did. And now we got RJ Barrett on a new contract. We have Jericho Sims still. We still got all our young pieces that we really love, and we still have all our draft picks moving forward. And we're set up perfectly for the next time a star asks out. So there's not really much to really be upset about. If you're a Knicks fan, you should, like, if you really want Donovan Mitchell, yeah, it's understandable that you are disappointed that after all this build up, it's just another star going to another team. And the Knicks are just left with what they had, but we are in a better predicament than we have been in previous years when we've had the same situation fall through. And I don't see the need to start pursuing just the first star to come up. We can continuously build with this young core and get the results that we're looking for, because it does seem like this young core plays Tom Thibodeau style basketball. That's still the coach of this team. So, yeah, one of our young guys can become a star. There was reports that Jerry West reached out to Leon Rose and said that Quentin Grimes is going to be better than RJ Barrett. And I don't take that lightly at all. Jerry West was the guy who said for Golden State to keep Klay Thompson over, who was it? Do you remember? Over Andrew Bogut or something like that? Or no. They were planning to pursue Dwight. Either way, it don't matter. Jerry West is just one of the forefathers of the NBA. He's one of the people that when he talks and says something, you listen, if this report is true. And seeing that Quentin Grimes' name was never entered into any trade, but RJ Barrett allegedly was, I'm going to tend to believe the report. But yeah, the plan really hasn't changed. All we really got to do now is just continue the path that we've been going on. And we felt like it was promising all up until this point, so we can't change course now just because a star became on the market and now we feel like we got to go star hunting. We're not at that point yet. Cleveland was, the Knicks are not yet, but we're not far, I don't feel like. So
I think what it really comes down to is how much faith you have in what you have. And Cleveland has more faith in what they have than the Knicks do. I think when you look at the rosters, ultimately you can make a case that the rosters are similar enough without Donovan Mitchell, between the Cavs and the Knicks. You could say, well, our Darius Garland is Jalen Brunson. The only thing is Jalen Brunson hasn't proven it yet. Colin Sexton is our RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett hasn't proven anything yet. They have Jared Allen. We have Mitchell Robinson. They have Evan Mobley. We have Jericho Sims or Hartenstein. So at the end of the day, Cavs are more secure in what they have than the Knicks are. And the reason why is because they've played the guys that they need to play. The Knicks still need to play these young kids. And maybe we don't need to go star hunting, but French, I don't know if you've seen Mark Berman. He's already started talking about, well, they may be out of the trade talks for Donovan Mitchell, But yeah, there's going to be other guys. You know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is being talked about in the Knicks as the next target. So, you know, the Knicks have options. You know, they could do a trade for SGA. They could wait for Donovan Mitchell. You know, it's not all doom and gloom. And I think that, but I do think that the priority does need to be getting these kids as many minutes as possible. All right. We're officially in September, which means training camp is right around the corner. And with that should be more Knick updates. But if not, we will be returning to our regularly scheduled program on September 24th. We'll probably release on the 25th or the 26th. And that will be the next episode of the Knicks Take Podcast. French, you got anything you want to plug?
Not at all. We're going to sign off. My laptop was just about to die. Sorry. My laptop was just about to die, so we had perfect time.
All right. Make sure y'all check out that website. French is putting in a lot of work. He's already wrote a blog post. I will have some blog posts coming up. You know, I've got started writing a bunch of stuff. I haven't posted anything yet because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. But make sure you keep your eyes out on that for the Knicks Take website. That is knickstake.com. Once again, KNICKSTAKE.com. That is live and it's looking real good. All right, y'all. Without further ado, thank you for listening to
The Knicks Take Podcast.
That intro music was Broadway Boo by Gotti B, formerly known as Bugatti Blade. You can find us on Twitter at The Knicks Take. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you for listening.